Okay, so we're chatting today. It seems a good time to be hooking up. I think your company has just announced a 10 million Series B funding round. So can you give us a bit of idea as to sort of why now, and I guess most importantly, what that money will help you, help you to do?
Yes, absolutely. It's a very exciting time for StorageOS. So StorageOS is a software-defined cloud-native storage platform, and we've had a lot of success with a number of different verticals, including some financial services and service providers. And this has given us the ability to prove out our project and the product, and prove the reliability and the robustness and the performance. And we're kind of tying that with this tsunami of Kubernetes adoption that we're kind of seeing everywhere in the industry, where now 80% of enterprises have already deployed Kubernetes into production. So we kind of take the product readiness and the market timing, and this was the right time to kind of take investment to kind of grow out our customer base. So we'll be using that money to grow out sales functions and customer-facing technology teams, and obviously continue to build out our engineering and roadmap. The funding rounds was an interesting process because we had to do this during a pandemic. So it's always kind of interesting to pitch to VCs that you've perhaps never ever met in real life before. So that was a slightly interesting dynamic, which kind of led to a slightly different process. But we were very excited with our new lead investors, who are Downing Ventures, based out of the UK. We've also had some of the existing investors, Bain Capital out of and Uncorrelated Ventures out of Palo Alto, MMC Ventures out of London, and Chestnut Street Ventures out of New York, who have also participated in the round. And it's very exciting because now it gives us the opportunity to grow and kind of take advantage of this Kubernetes adoption.
Okay, and in terms of what the company does, I mean, if I understand correctly, is cloud native storage. So for people who aren't maybe that familiar with it, can you give us a bit of an idea why cloud native storage, what's different about it, and why maybe at the present time in particular, when everyone's heading towards digital transformation, why it matters so much?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we kind of see cloud native storage as an enabler to allow a bunch of functionality that people are expecting out of their storage platforms and out of cloud. So, for the longest time, storage has been that foundational layer that provides you with availability and performance and the ability to scale your applications. But more and more, we're kind of adding other things into the mix. So we're looking at self-service and an on-off consumption model with the clouds, and automation around deployments and operations. And this kind of changes the dynamic, because traditional storage was very focused on providing storage to a server. It was very kind of tied up into these compute islands. And what we're looking at with cloud native storage is we've coined the term application-centric storage. So it's effectively storage that needs to follow an application, that moves with an application as it dynamically moves within a cluster, and is focused more on the self-service and the APIs and the cloud integrations. So we kind of see our customers adopt this journey where everybody's adopting containers, because containers remove that dependency from individual servers and allow their applications to be portable, which of course makes it extremely easy for the applications to be orchestrated and automated with a product like Kubernetes. And Kubernetes gives developers the ability to compose their environment. So they can specify what their application needs in terms of compute and networking, and then Kubernetes will just make that happen within the underlying infrastructure. But of course, all applications need to store state somewhere, and they need to and whether it's databases or message queues or file systems, all applications will need to have some storage functionality. So this is where a product like StorageOS and cloud native storage comes into play. So with a software-defined product that integrates with Kubernetes, you now give developers the ability to have an end-to-end composable stack. So they're not able, they're not just specifying compute and networking, but they're also specifying their storage functionality. So now they can say, they can move all of their stateful applications, including things like databases, into their Kubernetes stack. And because it's templatable and because it's composable, it kind of allows them to build anything as a service. So today we have customers doing things like database as a service, or CI/CD as a service, or even infrastructure as a service, where Kubernetes is actually managing VMs, for example.
Okay, and in terms on the website, I'm going to have to read this out, forgive me because I can't remember, but you described the StorageOS product as persistent storage for Kubernetes to enable cloud workflow, high availability, and fast failover. So can you obviously talk us through how you do that, and what again why those are some of the sort of pain points that need to be addressed?
Right. So StorageOS is it's quite unique because we are a software-only product, and we're actually deployed as a container without any proprietary kernel dependencies or hardware dependencies, which effectively gives us this broad platform agnostic solution. Our containers installed on different nodes in a cluster, and we virtualize the storage on those nodes. So that can be physical disk in the case of bare metal, or virtual disks in VMs, or cloud disks in cloud instances. And we kind of aggregate all of that storage into a pool, which spans all of the nodes in the cluster. So then from that pool, we have the Kubernetes integrations that allow us to dynamically provision volumes out of that pool. And those volumes are indeed application centric. So we have this mesh that allows us to instantiate volumes anywhere in the cluster. So as the application moves, the data moves with the application. And we do this in a way that's really scalable, that enables a lot of these self-service environments, but also offers the suite of services that you'd kind of envisage out of an enterprise storage array, right? So, the replication, the compression, the encryption, the tin provisioning, and all of those other functionality, which in the end give the end user not just all of the cloud native application centric self-service type functions, but also all of the more traditional enterprise data services that provide them with the performance and the failover capabilities that they've come to depend on in those spaces too.
Okay, and if I'm right, you've got I think it's over 4,000 storage clusters installed with customers at the moment. I know it's always difficult, but is there a sort of typical customer, particular at one or two sort of applications that hits a sweet spot, or have you got literally a whole sort of plethora of different customer applications out there?
So we really need to update the website because we've just hit about 5,000 clusters now, but but we get a variety of use cases because we enable cloud native storage in all sorts of enterprises. We tend to get a little bit more traction in some of the enterprises that are perhaps earlier on in their Kubernetes journey. But I'll give you a couple of examples. So we're live in a number of tier 1 banks, supporting their production trading platforms, running millions of transactions a day through the StorageOS storage engine, which is particularly exciting because most of the founders actually come from a financial services background before we set up StorageOS. Another example is in service providers. So, with this, I kind of mentioned that cloud is not necessarily a place. It's more of a business model that end users, that organizations everywhere want to adopt in terms of self-service and the on-off consumption model, etc. Um, and so what we're seeing is an explosion of different service providers providing value-added managed Kubernetes and value-added services for their customers. And in those kind of use cases, we're providing that storage engine for their customers, which means that we're rolling out infrastructure as a service and rolling out managed Kubernetes services in a number of service providers across the US and Europe too. And then, of course, we have a really strong bottoms-up set of use cases, which power developer use cases and DevOps use cases and things like CI/CD as a service, where again, the fact that we can scale and provide this really fast control plane that allows lots of operations to happen, like creating volumes and deleting volumes, but also moving data about, means that we have a lot of use cases where we're powering, for example, CI/CD as a service, where end users are creating and deleting tens of thousands of environments every single day, and we're just managing that under the covers behind the scenes.
Again, I think you mentioned in there a fast control plane, which perhaps brings me on to the next bit. I think you've recently announced some results from some performance benchmark tests, which are always interesting to see. So, I mean, I guess speed's a part of that, but can you talk us a bit through sort of the testing process and what the results have shown?
Sure. So one of the things that's sort of been core to our architecture is the fact that we're targeting a lot of mission critical type workloads, databases, message queues, etc., where latency directly translates to how many transactions per second or how many customers those applications can support. And so we've from the very early days, we've had a very strong focus on being able to provide that that exceptionally low latency performance, but also making it deterministic, such that even in dynamically changing Kubernetes environments, the performance can be reliable and predictable. So effectively, what we look at is low latency, which translates to very high operations per second and also very high throughput per second. And we're very proud to say that we're not just fractionally faster, but we tend to be multiple times faster than similar players in this field, and this is proven to be a big differentiator when it comes to running those mission critical workloads.
Okay, and maybe as we wrap up, it'd be good to have any thoughts you might have on this. Obviously, we've in the middle of, or hopefully towards the end of, a fairly significant disruption in the business world, well, the world at large, but business in particular. So any thoughts as to how storage will develop over the next 12, 18 months, and with particular reference to yourselves? I mean, are there things that you've already got on the roadmap, or what sort of areas is the company looking to grow in?
Yeah, so we kind of see the pandemic is obviously a horrible thing that affects everybody, but the sort of silver lining for cloud native is that the things like these sort of crises do also tend to spark acceleration in innovation and uptake of new technologies. So in much the same way that the internet bubble bursting in 2001 was a big push created a big push towards Linux, and the credit crisis in 2008 sort of created a big push for VMware and virtualization. What we're seeing is the acceleration to digital transformation and cloud native technologies as part of this most recent crisis. So we think that as developers continue to adopt containers and cloud native technologies, the need for cloud native storage just continues to accelerate with that. So we're very bullish about our prospects over the next 12 to 18 months. And in fact, a couple of trends that we're seeing that we'll be sort of working on over the next couple of quarters are two main things I want to highlight. The first is we're seeing customers who are deploying a larger number of Kubernetes clusters. And so the needs to have the ability to consume storage across clusters and replicate and move data across clusters becomes even more important. So we'll be offering an interesting set of features to allow us to do just that. The second point is we're kind of seeing this thing where no enterprise is doing a lock, stock, and barrel move to cloud native. There's always upstream or downstream dependencies for any particular application that is going to live in the traditional world and their existing environments, whether that's in a data center or whatever else. And so we're going to be coming up with a number of features that make it easier for those customers to onboard to cloud native and to provide the bridges to coexist between the two different environments, because we think that that's going to be something that's going to persist for a fair while.
Yeah, that's interesting because, as you say, everyone, the world suggests that everyone's moving rapidly, and you said digital transformation obviously is happening, but there's still a vast legacy amount of storage, whatever it is, that people need to address. Have you got any thoughts as to the time frame? Do you think inevitably that will all become cloud native over time, or yeah, how do you see that?
I certainly believe that the bulk of new applications will, over the next 12 to 18 months will be swinging. The pendulum is swinging very much towards cloud native ways of development. So I'll be very surprised if new applications get developed in the more traditional environments. But that said, there's a huge sort of portfolio and a huge suite of applications used by so many enterprises, which is not going to go away, and they're going to continue to be developed and maintained. And if you look at the amazing numbers that are being spent in the cloud, those sort of tens of billions of dollars are kind of dwarfed by the hundreds of billions of dollars that are still spent in traditional form of enterprise technology, right? So it's easily a couple of decades where these environments will end up coexisting. That's kind of my guess at this stage.
Okay, that's great. It's been really enjoyable talking to you. So, Alex, thanks very much indeed for your time.
Thanks. Thank you so much. It's been great to be here.